What up, guys? So it looks like if you guys have been keeping up with the news over the last few hours, then you'll know that the DMD has been put on DND.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I'll see myself out.
Cue the standing ovation!
What an amazing moment. We are blessed.
So I go on X, and all I literally see is Britt Baker trending, right? Now, I wanted to know why. So immediately I see a couple articles stating that she got suspended. I haven't been able to get a chance to read why, because I wanted to do it live on this video so that we can read it together. So per the Wrestling News Observer, Fightful Select, and a few other sources, take this with a grain of salt because you know how this stuff typically is. Britt Baker and MJF are two of AEW's biggest homegrown stars. However, the two wrestlers were involved in a backstage situation that resulted in the company to discipline Baker for her alleged actions. Now, since returning at Double or Nothing, MJF has been a main focus on AEW storylines when he turned heel by laying out Daniel Garcia and winning the international title from Will Ospreay. Now, Baker, she returned at the Forbidden Door, where she then confronted Mercedes Moné, who is now the TBS champion. And at that time, she was too. The two have been feuding as of late and are slated to meet at All In later this month, which is fantastic news. Moné will then put the TBS title on the line, and MJF's girlfriend recently joined the promotion as an on-air talent, Alicia Atout. This person right here, Alicia Atout. So she, has been dating MJF for a little bit now, and she is now a on-screen talent on AEW. Anyways, in the latest edition of Wrestling News Observer newsletter, whatever the crap that's called, Dave Meltzer reported that Baker was suspended for either 1 or 2 weeks and was fined by the company's disciplinary committee, aka Bryan Danielson strikes again. Interesting. Meltzer wrote that details have been kept pretty quiet, and it came from something backstage at the July 17th edition of AEW Dynamite, where Baker allegedly said something about MJF, and Alicia Atout went and told him. He then confronted Britt Baker, and this led to an investigation with Human Resources talking to people on the July 24th edition, and I believe the disciplinary committee that did the investigation recommended that. So again, Bryan Danielson and whoever else is on the committee, it is unclear whether the AEW president Tony Khan was involved in the investigation, but everyone attempted to keep this under wraps. Most of those we heard from were sympathetic to Britt Baker in this situation. It was then said that the way AEW handled this stemmed from past problems that weren't addressed, and AEW put together a committee to settle these situations quickly. Then there was another article that was released later on in the day, like maybe an hour ago or so, and it says that MJF reportedly punched the wall before Will Ospreay match. Britt Baker exercised frustration about the MJFs within the women's locker room, and ultimately that is what led to all of this. So, more details continue to come out regarding the backstage incident with MJF, his girlfriend, and Britt Baker. Dave Meltzer first reported that Baker was suspended for 1 or 2 weeks, which then led to an investigation the following week, which we knew. Now, Fightful Select is reporting that the word internally was that Baker exercised frustration about MJF within the women's locker room, and that is how MJF found out because Atout was in the room causing him to find out. While details are he said, she said at this point, they were told that there were confrontations between Atout, Baker, in addition to MJF and Baker. Will Ospreay also spoke with Britt Baker, and Baker took an issue with Alicia essentially telling MJF about what was said in the locker room. Baker and MJF were actually close friends at one point, but had a falling out sometime in the last year. Human Resources got involved in the situation several weeks ago. Baker has appeared on TV since then, but has been legitimately suspended. Now, Wrestle Purist is reporting that the incident happened right after MJF's 1-hour match with Ospreay. And Fightful is reporting that the argument resulted in MJF punching a wall before his long-hour match. So, the reason why I always say take things with a grain of salt is because there's going to be a lot of details or it may have not even happened, right? But let's say it did. Details are always going to be scarce. I mean, Dave Meltzer said it himself, right? He said, she said. Literally right here. So, and then the second thing is these people are reporting that it happened right after MJF's match, while Fightful is reporting that the argument resulted in him punching the wall before his long-hour match. So, the way that this worked is, did the incident happen right after Maxwell's match, or did it happen before his long-hour match? That is, little details like that, right? But let's talk about Britt Baker herself. she's going into a really big program with Mercedes Moné, right? And, you know, this isn't the first time that we have heard Britt speaking out about how she feels about certain things, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. I do think that there are certain ways you could go about doing certain things. And again, I wasn't there. I'm simply going off the article. So if we're going strictly off the article, usually when you vent something in the women's locker room or any locker room in general, it's not meant to be taken outside. That's the rule typically. In all sports, it was like that. Even when I was, you know, playing basketball in high school, it was like, hey, you know, XYZ we would talk, you know, we was boys, right? Boom. But in wrestling, I don't know if that rule applies to them. I don't know how that works. I would assume all sports have the same decorum as far as, you know, keep things in-house, but I digress, like Taz would say. If what they're saying is true, what did Britt Baker say that caused MJF to get so heinous and ultimately result in him hitting a wall? If that did even happen, what did she say? I doubt it was something that was that serious. I mean, they got to know Britt by now. She's a loose cannon as far as like verbal, right? She's even mentioned it on screen before that MJF takes a lot of screen time and things like that. And if you saw the show, which again, a lot of people were saying was scripted, but let's say it wasn't. Roads to the Top, not Roads to the Top, crap. The other AEW show, the reality one, where, you know, Eddie and Sammy Guevara kind of squashed their beef. Britt was constantly on Thunder Rosa for not being there when her back literally gave out. She was constantly venting to Tony Schiavone, Shivani, right? So all these things, right? You've seen all these things. But what if, you know, at that point in time when Britt was saying those things on screen, it was really just to get MJF and Adam Cole's storyline up out of the ground a little bit more. Even though they've already had enough to go off the ground, but, you know, maybe adding Britt to it will add a different element. But regardless, what was it that she said? Comment down below what your opinions are on all this. I don't think it was anything that crazy because typically we've never really heard of MJF having any sort of like major backstage issues with superstars. If anything, it was just in the past, whatever happened with him and Tony. And, you know, they tried to say that he wasn't going to show up to Wardlow's match, but he did. He was there. That whole company has had an interesting few years, to say the least. They've had so many crazy things that have come out from backstage that at this point, if they said this happened in WWE, I probably wouldn't believe it because a lot of things don't typically come out from them. But when I hear something about AEW, I'm like, it happened. Duh. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like, am I the only one in that boat? Like, how many times have we heard certain things happening in All Elite Wrestling? And how many times have we heard things happening in WWE? And how they were resolved were two completely different things, right? I don't know. Unless if things happen in WWE, but they have a really good private department to keep everyone quiet. I don't know. But typically AEW, unless if they're feeding things on purpose to get more eyes on the show whenever these things happen, because they have been known to turn these things into real life stories in the past. Let me know how you guys feel about all this. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to see any other topics like the Shane O'Mac situation, there's not really too much to talk about in regards to that, but he did have a meeting with Tony Khan. Let me know what y'all think. Thank you for watching. Peace.